Hello everyone, hope you're all well and thanks very much for all the support with my videos. I want to speak today about the events in Coolock on the north side of Dublin City last night, where there was pickets taking place for the last number of months because the ex-Crown Paints factory was due to be used for international protection applicants, another money making centre for the big investors. Now this has led yesterday to a huge escalation where at 4 o'clock in the morning, the Gardaí dismantled the picket that was there for the last 3.5 months and forced their way in to carry out works on this premises to get it up to specifications the authorities say for international protection. Then following the events, a lot of events took place that in terms of fire was set on a JCB, there was a number of altercations, and then it led to a huge amount of escalations during the day with the Gardaí deploying the public order unit. During this period as well, there was a lot of events happening in terms of the news that Drew Harris, the Garda Commissioner, was based during that period in Coolock Garda Station, overseeing the events. Now yesterday evening I was there and I witnessed a lot of the events that were happening. At that stage it had quieted down significantly compared to the earlier videos that have done the rounds. I saw horrific scenes through those videos as well in terms of the pepper spraying of a 78-year-old man. Absolutely despicable, heavy-handed approach again by the Gardaí in terms of people who were protesting. Many that have legitimate concerns because of the issues due to lack of services, no consultation with the community, next to no consultation, even though the authorities will claim that there has been consultation with the Department of Disintegration. One meeting was held, I think, with public representatives, and there was no follow-up meeting held, and the government worked with a lot of their locally, politically funded, government-funded, publicly money-funded groups to push this through, again without proper consultation. And as I said, there's lack of services in the area. People are struggling with housing, homelessness, issues around the health service also as well. And recently there was news that the affordable housing scheme up in Oscar Traynor Road, which isn't too far away from where the protests took place, where it's due to go for €475,000. So as well, there was no plan for integration. Also, there are some reports that it could be up to 500 people, perhaps more, could be housed in this ex-Crown Paints factory. And just give you a context of the area, a lot of the area around Coolock going into Darnsdale, Priorswood, all that area have a significant amount of unemployment. A lot of people in Priorswood, for instance, have a lot of huge percentage of lone parents, huge percentages of inequality, huge percentage of poverty, and a huge percentage of people who have been left behind because of the austerity that has fallen on Ireland over the last 15 to 20 years, implemented by successive governments, the neoliberal austerity that has left people fully behind in society, but yet they push them into working class areas that causes huge issues. And what did he expect was going to happen? 2 years ago, a memo was sent to Cabinet about social cohesion, that this would have an impact on social cohesion in terms of the Ukrainian refugees that come here in the temporary protection directive. Now it's coming to pass because we've seen all the numerous issues around places like Newtown Mount Kennedy. We've seen them also in Roscrea, where people weren't listened to, people were ignored, and people's genuine concerns have been dismissed because it doesn't affect the rich who benefit from this crisis, and the establishment that benefit from this through the commercial property owners making huge amounts of sums of money, such as the owners of this facility, Townby, which are one of the most prolific and probably worst in terms of these so-called professional providers. There was issues at the Coolock Hotel with a direct provision centre a number of years ago, and also they have facilities in other parts of the country as well, which are modern day incarceration facilities. But again, plenty of money to make in this. So there's nothing to see for the political classes, as they'll preach down to ordinary working class people and smear them and call them all types of names, rather than actually dealing with the underlying economic and class issue. And as I've said, that area as well around Coolock has lost a lot of industry over the last number of years. There was Cadbury's factory, Chivers, many more factories as well that offered employment to people in the area have been closed down due to a lot of the policies of the state. So we've had all this myriad of issues, and now the preaching is starting. Now it's all about pontificating and talking down to people. But as I said, when I was there late yesterday evening, the place was on complete lockdown. It was absolutely terrible to see, especially for local residents that lived there, and there was a whole air of complete mayhem, that nobody was in control of the situation. And this is just absolutely despicable. But what do we come to expect from the authorities' responses in terms of the heavy-handed responses? Nobody would condone any form of violence, but in the context of what went on and the response to it, it shows you that they're looking for confrontations, and by pushing these policies through without consultation and looking for reactions to an extent of people, and embolden those reactions as well, because of the lack of community engagement, and as I said, the serious lack of economic resources that are suffering for people as well. And the political response hasn't been that remarkable, to be honest, because there's been a few of the politicians have come out normally and expectedly to come out to say that this is disgraceful, it's despicable, and talking down to ordinary people again rather than listening to their concerns. And what do you think is going to be created by that? More division, creating more and more attacks on people that have legitimate concerns of working class communities up and down the country. Now, it is important also to look at where can it go from this, because we've seen people look to various influences, pointing the finger by hate or pointing at somebody else, for instance, for their issue. The housing crisis is fundamentally because of government policies, and there's no doubt that the immigration industry has profited the landlords, the commercial property owners, the big bosses. And there is serious concerns, as I said, in areas of working class communities where people are being left behind because of this. And because of the decade and a half of austerity and neoliberal policies, it's led to this situation where it's just driven more people into anger because of being left behind by policies and no interventions. And it's ironic when you consider there was a huge Garda presence last night, probably 300 odd Gardaí were there, plus the public order unit as well. And these are areas that have next to no community policing. You don't see people on the ground actively to engage with communities and policing by consent that should happen in those communities where there is proper engagement with people on the ground. And as well, the political representatives have a huge case to answer in this regard as well, by not being on the scene yesterday, in terms of they should have been down there in terms of standing with the people or standing up for de-escalation. A number did during those protests, I know, but not, I don't think, from the local area, who were missing in action. And so much for the political response as well from a couple of parties such as Sinn Féin as well, who are condoning again to an element the heavy-handed response. It's not acceptable to give more powers over to authorities when they're ramming through policies, and it becomes a totalitarian state really, rather than dealing with a state that's respectful, that's dignified, and the people are listened to and heard. And this is a vitally important, critical point of living in a democracy, because we need to build a country that we're proud of. Ireland's a fantastic country. Ireland's been destroyed by neoliberal policies, by corporate greed. So many people are suffering and struggling because of these policies, and there has to be policies that are there derived from the people in terms of our policies of the state, such as the housing policy, health policy, immigration policy, need to be at the helm of it. People have to be involved in those policies of the state, and it always rolls back to who benefits from these crises. The establishment will benefit from these crises by clamping down on people's rights Even last night, the Garda Commissioner spoke about disinformation and misinformation and all this type of stuff. And when there's no transparency, when there's no openness, it opens the door to all these elements growing and growing. But again, what his misinformation is, he's pushing the government's narrative again to speak down to people. So we need to have a dignified country where people's needs are met. People have a right to a home, a decent health service, education and jobs and employment. As I said, so many people who are left behind, for instance, in that area of Dublin and a lot of more working class areas around Dublin and across Ireland as well, that people are completely alienated and left behind by the rotten system that the political classes and political establishments uphold every single time, whether bowing down to the bureaucrats of Brussels or whether standing up for the big business interests who will profit and create misery, all in the name of greed, money, and ordinary people's needs are secondary to all those concerns because they're paramount in this rotten and corrupt system. We need to build a better system that puts the needs of people first. Thanks very much for all the support on my videos, really appreciate them, and please press subscribe to my YouTube channel and I'll keep you posted on what goes on. Thanks a lot, take care, Slán.